Hi. I'm a mom. I don't have several initials after my name, nor am I an authority on anything in particular. I was a young woman who became pregnant out of wedlock. Now, you might think that this is a common occurrence in this day and age. It was not in the early 70s. I was the fifth of 10 children and the first to conceive. The thing that stuck in my head was that someone had to love this child. When Todd was short of a year old, I married David, his father, whom was also my best friend. We had a simple life, oblivious to our great undertaking, but we were happy. Little did we realize how our lives would unfold. When this happy boy was about 5 years old, he was abducted in a public restroom where I worked and was assaulted. In those days, there weren't the tools and justice for such crimes. This was the beginning of many devastating things to happen to this carefree child. When Todd was 8 years old, his father passed away from a tragic camping accident. David slipped off a steep cliff and fell into a river with a swift current. We did not recover his body for 7 weeks. From that age until his early teen years, there would be the feelings of abandonment, disillusion, and behavioral problems. We sought out family and individual therapy. Todd was currently enrolled in a local high school. Later, it was suggested that he attend a military school. I wanted to do what I thought was best for him and point him in a positive direction. The professionals that guided us through this process thought the structure of such a school would help keep him on track. Todd excelled in academics as well as extracurricular activities. Prior to the academy, I remarried, and another son, Brian, would be born 14 years Todd's junior. Todd was really ecstatic to have another sibling, and he loved his brother very much. While he was away at the academy, Katie would be born. At the end of the school year, Todd would be home for the summer. The summer was stormy and full of emotion. We continued with therapy, but I knew that he was exploding inside. Years later, Todd revealed to me that while he was away at the academy, he was continuously assaulted as well. One night, my husband met me after work for dinner. In the middle of our meal, I dropped my fork on the plate, and it made this loud clang, and it reverberated in my brain like a locomotive just screeching down the tracks. I sensed that something was terribly wrong, and I needed to go home. I left the restaurant and raced home. After my husband got home, I proceeded to take the sitter home, and I invited Todd to ride along with me. On the return trip, my son confided in me that he had committed a crime. I was in shock and disbelief, and I was also clueless about what to do. We took a side trip on the way home, and we went to our therapist's office. She kept late hours, so we just sat and waited in her lobby. We discussed what had happened earlier in the evening, and she said we had to go to the authorities. The next day, I contacted our attorney, and we unfolded what had occurred, and he made some inquiries. I shared with our attorney that there is one thing I've always instilled in my children, and that was, for each action, there is a consequence, whether good or bad. Eventually, the crime was filed, and we offered to bring our son into the police department. This was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. As we stood there filling out paperwork, this gut-wrenching feeling grew in my stomach. Was this really what I wanted to do? This began a whirlwind that I was ill-equipped to deal with. While waiting through the initial juvenile process, I carted homework, books, and tests back and forth to the facility. The attorneys handling our case told us that he would be tried as an adult. What did this mean? Where did we go from here? Where that faith came inside of me to push forward for any possible redemption, I'll never know. I just knew that I could never give up hope. I was in the courtroom bathroom during a recess of the sentencing phase, and I encountered the victim. As I stood at the wash basin with the water streaming over my hands, I looked from her face to mine in the mirror. It appeared as though we were reflections in a pool of water just meshing together. I did not have the courage to apologize, much less know what to say to her. I felt like such a coward. I thought of her pain and my pain and how we were both victims. My memory reverted back to when I was young and was also assaulted. I thought about how I had no justice. My son had no justice for her early tragedies, and why was this happening? Prior to sentencing, I requested a meeting with the lead prosecutor, and I begged for leniency. He dismissed my pleas and said that I would abandon him like so many other parents. I responded that no matter what, I would always be here for him. After 23 long years, I am still here, and I will always be. Years later, I learned from my son that many inmates do not have supportive families or visits. I can't tell you how sad that makes me feel. We returned to court, and the sentencing was handed down. I just sat there numb. I couldn't digest that this beautiful child was going to prison at the age of 15. There was no parental influence, no therapy, no nothing. The state was now his home. I was devastated. The crime and shame that it brought with it took a toll on our family. My marriage crumbled. I wallowed in grief and depression for a long time. I felt alienated from my family. I felt so alone. Brene Brown, in a TED Talk, refers to shame as a fear from disconnection. Boy, that sure defined me. One morning, I sat on the edge of my bed with my feet just dangling, and it hit me. I could get up and fight or succumb to this tragedy. Robert Kennedy once said, "Tragedy is a tool for the living to gain wisdom, not a guide by which to live." I filed for divorce and resumed being the parent I knew I had in me. I had 2 other children that needed me, and it was irrelevant at the moment what my struggles were. Todd refers to these moments as lacing up those boots, strapping on those Sicilian brass balls, and kicking ass. With that being said, I supported Brian and Katie at school and sports for the duration of their education. From the time that they were toddlers, I took them to see their brother wherever they were incarcerated. I wanted them to know this extension of themselves. We were a family, after all. When they were in their teens, we were visiting their brother. We were sitting outside on a warm summer day, and Todd decided to tell his siblings the facts of his crime. When he finished telling them, I waited with the breath just barely coming out of me. How will they react? Will this change their relationship? Brian looked at his brother and said, "That was then, and this is now. I love you, bro." Katie just said ditto. I was amazed. I had been sitting there wrenching my hands. When I looked down, I saw the 3 gold bands that I wear on my hands. They represent each of my children. I put them on when each was a newborn and have never taken them off. They signify that my love has no beginning and no end. Now I looked at all 3 of my children and felt truly blessed. Over the years, these younger children would have a positive influence from their brother to persevere through their education and be compassionate people to others. On the night of Brian's high school graduation, I sat in the audience with 1,000 other parents. When his name was called, I just stood up. Somehow, he sought me out and made the sign, I love you, to me. I was so proud. He was diagnosed with ADHD early on, and school was difficult for him. Many nights we stayed up late, studying for tests and writing papers. Here was the proof that he had succeeded. 1 year later, Katie graduated with many honors from school. She is gifted and does well. Today, she is working on her second degree, and Brian is a firefighter, EMT, and paramedic. There were times as Todd matured that I wondered when he would accept responsibility for his actions. When he took a comprehensive offender program about 12 years into his sentence, it unfolded. He realized through his own pain, the pain he had caused others. It became clear to me that he could identify and empathize with the victim. I had waited a long time to see him evolve. Recently, he participated in the Horizon program. He was beginning his own healing. The journey of accepting responsibility and compassion put him on a path to infuse others. It has affected each one of us. We all have a close relationship, and I know that this is what binds us. We are family. We support one another, however fragile or strong we are. From the moment I sat on my bed with my feet dangling and being so fragile, I knew that family was the answer. My redemption had come. My belief is unconditional love endures all. I knew I had to reach out to my family if I were to make it through this difficult time. Reaching out is sometimes one of the hardest steps we take. The end result is that we become better people. If we become better people, then we can impact those around us. If we inspire those around us, we can spread compassion like wildfire.